What the heck's wrong? What did I do with Leo? Leo is gone. He's having a good time. He's on a boat. He's in Australia. He's drinking God knows what, having a great time. So we're here, though. Twig goes on. I'm Jeff Jarvis, trying my best to be Leo, but I can't tell you how hard his work is. We, of course, have the magnificent and wonderful Gina Trapani here, along with a great panel, Kevin Marks, Denise Howell, great friends of the show. We talk about all kinds of things. Actually, not very much Google. We talk about General Petraeus and email and Nexus. And, well, heck, watch the show. It's coming right up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for This Week in Google is provided by Cachefly. Cachefly.com.
This is Twig. This Week in Google, episode 172, recorded November 14th, 2012. Leoless.
This Week in Google is brought to you by Stamps.com. Start using your time more effectively with Stamps.com. Use Stamps.com to buy and print real U.S. postage the instant you need it, right from your desk. For our special offer, go to Stamps.com now, click on the microphone, and enter Twig. That's Stamps.com, enter Twig. And by Ford, featuring available sync. Now you can control your media player with simple voice commands. Enjoy your drive while you easily search and listen to your favorite songs. Check it out on the 2012 Ford Focus and at Ford.com/technology. And by American Express Bank FSB, offering a high-yield savings account, the perfect complement to help you reach your savings goal. To learn more and open an account online, visit personalsavings.com/online savings.
This is This Week in Google. We are Leoless this week. It's painful. It's horrible. It's not the way, the natural way things should be. But, of course, at least we have, I'm back. I'm Jeff Jarvis, and I'm back. And we have, of course, always the wonderful Gina Trapani. Over to that direction.
Hello. We got the Brady Bunch set up.
We do. And below is Kevin Marks.
Hi there.
Hello. And see if I get this right. And that way, did I do it right? Yeah, that way, hi, is Denise Howell. And we're a Brady Bunch. Yes. Hello, all.
Great to see you, Jeff.
Great to be here. Great to be back in New York with power and all is well here. So, well, I figured we'd start off this week with, are you ready, Chad? The changelog.
The Google changelog.
It's the week before Thanksgiving, which is really good news because it means that everything gets released. There's tons of new stuff in the Google world this week. Let's get it started. Google Plus now allows users to directly download Android apps from the stream. So if you link to an Android app you love, which I found out the other day when I was promoting my app to do text, other users will see a buy link. They click on the buy link and choose the device they want to install to, and they can get their Android apps directly from the Google Plus stream. Gmail got a couple of new search parameters. I really like this. Gmail has a ton of search parameters like to and from and subject, and has attachment. Got a couple new ones. You can find messages that are larger than a certain size. So if you want to find messages that are really big, you want to clean out your inbox, you can search for size : say 5M for messages which are 5 megabytes, or you can search for larger : 5M for messages that are larger than 5 megabytes. You can also find email by date. So if you wanted to find a message that was older than a year, there's a new search parameter called, you use it older_than:1Y for older than 1 year.
What a quaint concept, cleaning out your inbox.
I know. It's years. Just in case you're topping out your 10 gigabytes of Gmail space and you need to clean out some bigger ones, you can do that now with a search parameter. YouTube for Android, the YouTube app for Android adds AirPlay-like functionality for Google TV. So if you've got your Nexus 7 or your Android device in your living room and you've also got a Google TV and you're watching a YouTube video, you can send it to your TV and watch it on the big screen. This is really similar to AirPlay for the Apple universe, and really similar to actually what the Nexus Q did. But so few people have the Nexus Q. It's kind of nice to see that built into the YouTube app, right, for regular Google TV devices. Google says that Flash is now fully sandboxed in the latest release of Chrome. Sandbox just means that each Flash plugin or any bit of content on any web page where Flash is being used is completely sandboxed. It's contained within a process that you basically can't run malicious software on your computer. So a little safer, a little more secure in the most recent version of Chrome. Google also updated the Play Music app for Android, and they announced European availability. The new Play app adds the ability to keep thumbs up, last added, and purchase playlists on your device. And it also has this new auto-generated instant mixes in the recent tabs based on your favorite songs, and also has improved offline music access as well. Google Shopping, gearing up for the holiday season, they add a new feature called Shortlist, which is a lot like Wishlist. So when you search in Google Shopping for a product, you can add a product to your shortlist. And the shortlists are really nice. They include product images, prices. You can add comments and notes, and you can share shortlists with other people. So if you're making a wish list for the kids, or if you're shopping with coworkers to give a gift to someone else, you can share and comment and discuss each product on your shortlist. And Google Shopper 3.0, which is the Android app, also adds some new features. Local deals based on your location, deals online, and new good guide ratings, which tell you how eco-conscious a product is. Also just redesigned home screen, which is very image heavy, makes it easier to shop for products.
Does it say where they get the data on the eco-conscious stuff, Gina?
It's good guide ratings. So I'm not sure if good guide is a third party or if that's a Google thing.
I think so, yeah. Okay.
Finally, Android 4.2, the new flavor of Jelly Bean, quote unquote, has an over-the-air update has pushed out to the Galaxy Nexus phone, the Nexus 7, but not the Nexus S. And we talked about this the last couple of shows, that the new Jelly Bean update includes new features like multiple user support, switching users, the swipe feature in the keyboard, and the photosphere feature in the camera, which lets you take 360-degree views of pictures. So we could talk a little bit more about that later on, because I think a few of us have gotten the update. That's it. That's all I got for the changes.
Wow, that's tons of stuff. Oops.
Gina, can I ask you a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Do you know if the AirPlay functionality for YouTube is there any thought that might just work with Chrome? That you're on a laptop, whether it's a Chromebook or some other laptop, and as long as you're using the Chrome browser, that might work?
That would be really nice. No word about that, but that would be really nice. I mean, the thing about the AirPlay thing is that you have to have a Google TV. So there's that. Yeah, it would be nice. You know, I've been using the Watch Later feature in YouTube. So I add stuff to watch later if I'm in browser, and then on the Google TV, I go to the YouTube app there, and then go to Watch Later, which is super clumsy and requires lots of clicks. It would be really neat to see that send to my TV in Chrome. I would love to see that.
That would be good. Well, speaking of Google TV, we might as well go to this one. It too has updated in the never-ending Google effort to finally make the product actually decent. So now it has voice search and a new primetime guide. Is that something is already automatically on your Google TV, Gina?
I have the Logitech review. So the review didn't get the voice search feature. It did get the YouTube update that I just talked about. And I think that it did get the primetime guide update. Although my setup is a little messed up. I'm not quite getting cable listings correctly for reasons I won't get into. So you have to have a newer Google TV device. So I think that those updates, the voice search particularly, is rolling out to Logitech TVs, and then the second generation, what they're calling second generation Google TV devices, unfortunately.
Do the other two of you have Google TV?
I don't. Nope. I have an Apple TV, and it's one of the older models, so I don't have AirPlay on it anyway. But I love the idea.
I have
Kevin,
Apple TV and a Nexus Q. So,
pardon me?
I have the Apple TV and a Nexus Q, so I've got both those options.
Oh God, the Q! Oh,
now the release notes for Jelly Bean say that you can share anything on your screen on HDTV, but there's no clue about how you do that. No what's on your screen.
Huh?
But
only if you have Google TV.
But I can't see how you would do that. I can't see any settings for that. So maybe that's a promise rather than a delivered thing. Or maybe
Denise, I think you're on to the right thing where you should stuff across. I have now gone, or I have my Nexus 7, I have my Galaxy Nexus, and it has arrived at last. I have my Chromebook. So I have begun my bold experiment to live only in Googleville. I'm gonna live only in Chrome on computer stuff, and I'm gonna live only in my Android devices on my things, and I will report back in a few weeks to see how it goes if I haven't killed myself between now and then.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be alone in that too long, Jeff.
No, I think I'm liking it so far. The quick note is it's stupid to have a search button, not a caps lock button. It actually crashes a little bit, but of course it's just a browser, so it comes right back. The screen is a little tinny, a little plasticky, but it's pretty darn amazing that everything I need for $249. And Google today announced a new Chromebook for only $199 with 3.5 hours of battery power. So it's pretty
ours
remarkable.
came this week too. And I just I got this for my son because his school is all Google Docs, Google Drive, the whole universe of work they do at school is in the Google ecosystem, so it's really going to make sense for him.
Now, you two power users there, are you looking down your nose at us for having these Tonka toys?
No. Never. Someone in the chat room said, Web6960 said, the YouTube AirPlay thing works with PlayStation 3, TiVo Premiere, Xbox 360, Google TV, and other smart TVs. But the stories that I saw said that it was Google TV only. Kevin, do you know if this is true? Does it work with Xbox 360 and those other devices?
I don't know. I'm trying to find something other than this press releasey thing to explain what the feature is. So.
Yeah. Sorry, y'all. We're frantically Googling as we talk.
The chat room will provide momentarily, I'm sure.
It will. We need a link, chat room.
So the other part of the other news, of course, is this week Google released finally its new Nexus 4 and Nexus 10 for sale for about 30 friggin' seconds. I tried desperately, and I don't know why. I have my Google Nexus phone. I'm happy with it, but I just can't help myself. I'm feeling like Leo this week, so of course I have to justify buying any new gadget as soon as it comes out. And I was going to buy the Nexus 4. I saw across the world, in Australia and then in Europe, people were cursing and growling because they couldn't get it. They got on and they were refreshing. The report was it was going to go on sale here at noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. At about 11:35 a.m. my time, it turned out to be on sale. So I refreshed, trying to constantly go to every step of the buy process. Finally, once for the 16 gig, I got all the way to the end. I got my credit card done. I hit it, and then it says, boom, basically it was sold out. I stupidly then go to, I need some advice from you guys in a second. I go to the 8 gig. I do it again and again and again and again, and apparently I don't get it. Then 2 hours later, I find a purchase confirmation that I have an 8 gig coming my way. First thing is, Google can do everything well, but it can't run a store better than friggin' Radio Shack? Why can't they do this? Is this hard, really?
It's just too much of a brick and mortar thing, maybe.
It's really remarkable how hard it is. Now, they might have had, 5 units and thought the scarcity was great. You can go on, you can buy the new Nexus 7s. You can buy other things right now, but you just cannot. And the 10, I think, is still available. But you can't buy the Nexus 4. And so maybe they wanted that because it looks like they're popular. But it really was a very frustrating experience. I saw some guy put up on Twitter a list of 5 canceled purchases. He said, I either have 0 or 8 coming. I can't tell.
Jeff, I think this is a Jarvis Easter egg. I think Google, anytime you try to purchase a Google device, as soon as they see your name, there's some sort of snafu pre-programmed.
All right, now here's the advice I need from you guys. Is it worthwhile having an 8 gig, or should I just return it and wait for the 16 gig?
I think it's worthwhile. I mean, I'm finding that more and more on tablets and phones, storage is becoming irrelevant. There's not so much that I need to store there because so much is streamed.
Kevin?
Yeah, more is always better with storage and RAM, but I haven't, I've got the 8 gig version of this and I haven't run into problems with it. So I think they're getting better at sort of paging stuff in and out as you need it. The way the Google Play stuff works with music is pretty impressive on this now, because it will cache stuff if you ask it to, but generally, as long as you've got some kind of connection, it'll pull stuff down.
So, Gina, which phone are you using regularly now?
I switch between the iPhone 4S and the Galaxy Nexus. Mostly just kind of keep up with what's going on with both, and I test my app on both. It's funny. I've been using the iPhone a lot just because the camera feels really fast, and I just been taking a lot of pictures of the baby, and I have to get her that 1 second that it looks like maybe she's smiling. But I have to say that this Jelly Bean update is really, really cool. So I think I might switch back to the Galaxy Nexus. So I'm kind of between the two of them, but they're both live, and I grab one or the other, and I use Google Voice, so it rings and texts to both.
Why don't you talk a little bit more about what you've seen so far from the update?
So the bit of the update that I was really excited about was the multiple user support, so you can switch users, and that doesn't make very much sense on a phone, but it makes a ton of sense on a tablet. So the Nexus 7 is kind of our, in my house is our living room computer. My wife and I both use it, and I really like the idea that she and I can both have our accounts set up, separate home screens, separate apps, separate email accounts, the whole thing. And so when we pick it up, we can log in as whoever it is and have all of our stuff. And it's done really nicely. If I download an app and use it collects data, but then if she decides to use that app, it doesn't redo the download, but all the settings are new. That's really nice. The other kind of big difference is the keyboard has that swipe functionality where you kind of drag your finger from one letter to the other and it guesses what word you're trying to type. And I really like this. I really like the swipe with a Y app. Alternate keyboard on Android a while back. I wrote a piece about it a while back, and it's actually really nicely done in this just Jelly Bean update. I've only played with it a little bit the last few hours, but you can have a choice. You can use the swipe or not, and it looks very similar to the regular keyboard. It's nicely done, and of course the photosphere feature, which Kevin was just trying to take a 360 photo of his backyard, and I don't think it went so well. It's different than panorama. You kind of need to kind of walk around and take your picture, take your photo kind of as you go, versus a panorama, you kind of move the camera. It sounds like you have to kind of move your whole body to get a picture, although I'm still trying to get that right. But once you get it, you get this 360 view, and you can upload it to Google Maps tied to your location, which is really nice. And I think those are the major features. Did I miss anything?
I think you pretty much got it, yeah. Different clock. People notice when you sign on, it has a big size on it, just different font. These are the kinds of silly things that Apple people usually care about. We don't. Different clock there. Fairly minor. The Galaxy Nexus S will not have this update, right? But the Nexus will. So I don't know what other units will get and won't get the update, which will probably be very frustrating for folks. The other news out in Nexus land was that, of course, as I said, the Nexus 7 is now on sale. They have the cell phone enabled version of it for what is it, $299? 32 gig plus online connectivity unlocked. That's on sale and available now. They have the 10 available. And there was one report that I put in the update that said that the Nexus 7 has some new small changes in the hardware inside, and that it's allegedly faster. So I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, allegedly it is faster. And is it the larger? I thought someone in the chat room said the one that had more gigabytes was supposedly faster, but I'm not sure.
There was a speed test on the Next Web. It's up on the chat. It's up on the rundown under Android. So I don't know. But it's minor. It's not a big deal. I haven't touched my iPhone now in 2 or 3 weeks. I haven't touched my iPad in probably 2 months. So I've really found myself switching from Apple disease to Google disease.
I can see it being, I think you're kind of unique, Jeff, that you were already so entrenched in the Apple universe, and you're extricating yourself and adopting a whole new paradigm, as it were. But in our household, I could definitely see it being generational, because with my son, with his Chromebook, and then ultimately when he gets old enough to have a phone, it would be logical to keep him in that ecosystem. And, I could just see, it'll be sort of like having Republicans and Democrats living under the same roof, which we also have. So
he's the technological Alex Keaton.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, my lights go off. I've got to go dance and prove to them I'm alive. Sorry, I'm back. Leo doesn't do this. Only when you get the backups. And Gina didn't do this either. All right, so I thought because we have Denise here, there were a couple of law stories that were pretty interesting and related to the law. And rights and so on. And oddly enough, I find the Petraeus story, besides being odd and tawdry in all kinds of ways, the questions that I thought might be interesting for us to explore are the privacy issues. You know, I've argued that the government is not our best protector of privacy. It is our greatest threat to privacy. And if you look at what happened in the Petraeus story, where just to recount, correct me if I get this wrong here, but there was a complaint from, I think the Florida socialite named Ms. Kelly, that she was getting threatening emails. And so she called on her friend at the FBI, who later, and I don't understand this part at all, sent shirtless pictures of himself, whatever. And turned out to be, of course, the biographer of Petraeus, who was sending allegedly the threatening emails. That revealed the affair. That lost Petraeus' job. Then there's the connection of his number 2 general in Afghanistan to the socialite again. Gawker has a whole chart trying to explain all this stuff. Fine. So that's the tawdry part that everybody's covering. But the part that concerns me here is if these exchanges had happened in snail mail, or even if they'd happened on the telephone, they wouldn't have been so easy for the FBI to come in. And what does this mean for all the rest of us? Is it just different because this is the head of the CIA? Or does this reveal a security risk for all of us when it comes to our communications and illustrates how we do not have the right of secure and private communication in email, as we know, versus the mails? Counselor?
Yes, well, you've hit on a problem that exists offline as well when the government is investigating something, when law enforcement is, as happened here, that if someone is cooperating with them and providing them with a bunch of evidence, you know, they're going to comb through it. And if they find other tidbits in there that may be criminal or, you know, prompt some separate investigation, they don't have to get a separate warrant. They don't have to turn away and pretend they didn't see that thing. They can go ahead and use it. It's, you know, in the real world, you know, say you have marijuana on your car seat and you're stopped. It's called the plain view doctrine. And I think that we're seeing it carrying over here to this woman's email account. And that's how, you know, this whole thing unfolded.
Would that be true if they had print mails? I mean, you know, snail mail.
Yeah, I think so. You know, as long as she had provided all this stuff and said, you know, here's everything I have on the issue. I'm being, you know, stalked or whatever it was she told them. They clearly can go through it, and they don't need a warrant. They don't really need any other permission of the people whose data is in their hands, you know, being provided by this woman who prompted the investigation. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a big security leak.
Right. There was also more metadata, of course, associated with the emails where you could track it back in a way that was harder to be anonymous. I read one story, I wish I remember where, I think it was in the New York Times, that explained that the spycraft that Petraeus and Broadwell evidently used was to create a if I can correct me if I get this wrong here, to create a separate email account. And rather than sending emails to each other, just sharing the password to that one account, and you left a message there like a message drop in the old spycraft. And then along with and read it, and it's supposed to kill it. But the problem was that then Broadwell created another account and started using stuff in ways that I don't know exactly where it goes. Should I be troubled by this or not? Technology geniuses?
Well, I mean, part of this illustrates a gap in the law, in that the ECPA means that this stuff isn't subject to the Fourth Amendment, so people can search it without getting a warrant, and that is an issue.
It's a huge gap. Yes,
and this is because that law was written back in the 80s, and they assumed that anything still on a server after 180 days was abandoned, and therefore they could look it up. And you know, Gmail sort of blows that up completely because they keep everything forever. So that there's a sort of legal definition of email that dates from the 80s that is now being used to let them trawl every email you've ever sent or received. And it looks like there was initially she handed over some accounts voluntarily, and then they got access to other accounts, partly because they'd seen some of the emails back and forth, and then they went and looked on the servers for this stuff. That was the impression we got from this, not just that some of the stuff that's been received.
So the rule is, James Fallows at the Atlantic said, of course, never put anything in an email or electronic that you wouldn't have problems with out there. The other statement of that rule is, if you put it in email, make sure it's okay if it appears on the front page of the New York Times. Little do you know. Beyond that common sense rule, Gina, what advice would you have for people here?
I mean, I think it's just kind of a matter of awareness of these things. I mean, I think it's a matter of upgrading our laws. I'm going to say upgrading our laws to sort of match technology. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It feels kind of like a bit like a cop out, right? Like if you're doing something you don't want people to know about, then don't do it electronically. I don't know. I've been rewatching The Wire. The HBO series The Wire, and it's a fascinating sort of study on how to communicate without getting trapped. I say everybody just get pagers and have some sort of a scrambled combination that nobody knows and only talk on payphones. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just an awareness, and I think people are still sort of learning that. Whatever I put online, I have to be aware, even if I think it's private, it might not be. That there are lots of ways that it could not be.
It's such a clear case to me that making laws based on technologies is so wrong. And in essence, our protections on mail were made to a technology of print and physical delivered. And the principle should have been there that we have a right to private personal communication, period, full stop. But it doesn't work that way, does it?
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
There are some tools. There's some tools for, digitally encrypting your email. Weren't there? I have to say that I have an 8-week-old, so my brain's kind of mush, and I've only followed the story sort of a little bit. But wasn't Petraeus and his mistress weren't they like writing draft emails and saving them in a draft folder and then logging into that account without sending them? I mean, that there are there's always sort of a little bit of a hacker way to go around or to try to protect your stuff or to send encrypted files, but nothing is absolutely and completely secure.
What does this do to Gmail's brand? Do people who aren't sophisticated like you guys, are they going to look and say, oh my God, Gmail's easy to, do you think this has an impact on them?
I don't
potentially.
think
sorry, Denise.
Go ahead. I was going to say I don't think it impacts Gmail any worse than any other standard kind of email program. It maybe gives rise to an enterprising opportunity for developers to come up with a kind of mail system that they could market as, more secure. Hushmail is out there. What is there? Tiger Mail as well. But, those things just don't seem to get much traction except for people really hardcore interested in security. And I think that there's an opening for the general public to have some sense of, yes, this is a more private way to go, and it's also got all the convenience that I love.
Well, I didn't plan it this way, but I cannot imagine a better segue to our first sponsor, Stamps.com. Over to you, Leo.
I might like to interrupt for just a moment to talk about disintermediating the post office. I got my U.S. Postal Service mug here. But I'm going to talk about Stamps.com. Actually, the Postal Service loves Stamps.com because Stamps.com means you can do everything you need to do at your desk instead of going to the post office. I mean, everything. Print, legal U.S. postage. And by the way, you do not need a postage meter or special ink. You're going to save up to 80% off what you're paying on a postage meter with Stamps.com. You've already got what you need, which is a computer and a printer, and Stamps.com. Mac or PC, by the way. Stamps.com lets you print real U.S. postage right from your desktop and do everything you would do at the post office right from your desktop, including things like fill out the forms for international mail, express mail, priority mail. I love it because you can use Stamps.com to manage your shipping as well. Send an email out when something gets shipped with the tracking information. All of that with the click of a mouse. It'll even take the mailing address from your QuickBooks or Amazon, eBay, PayPal page, Etsy. So if you do fulfillment, if you do a lot of mailing, Stamps.com is such a great solution. You always have exactly the postage you need when you need it, on demand, 24/7. You get discounts you can't even get at the post office, including up to 21% on express mail, up to 15% on priority mail. They fill out the forms. They print right on the envelope. You got to just try this. Now, I want to give you the $110 bonus offer, frankly. That's $55 in postage coupons, a free digital scale, a $5 supply kit, and a 4-week trial. But you can't get that if you go to Stamps.com without following these instructions exactly. Click the radio microphone in the upper right-hand corner and use the promo code TWIG. All right? It's an $80 value on the front page of Stamps.com unless you know the secret Easter egg. Click the radio microphone, use the offer code TWIG, and that's now suddenly worth $30 more. You got to love that. Stamps.com, use our offer code TWIG. You're gonna thank me later. You'll never have to go to the post office again with Stamps.com. Now back to Jeff, Gina, and This Week in Google.
How was that for a segue, huh? How was that smooth?
That was awesome. The Postal Service retains its relevance.
And now Leo can make the commercials and also add that if you use Stamps.com in the mail, you will be caught in your affair if you do it well. You know, hell, you can stay in charge of the CIA, for God's sakes. All right, I'm going to
just don't use postcards.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm going to dance around. We'll get back to some Google stuff, but one thing that fascinated me this week in the world of video was that Mozilla released what they call Popcorn Maker 1.0, which is an online video editing platform that lets you take a video online and then add all kinds of events and things to them. So for background, Chad, you want to play just a little bit of the demo piece?
It might not.
It also delayed for me. Sorry, I thought I was going to be smoother. There we go. Nope.
It says press play. There's a
Popcorn Maker lets you enhance video and audio you find on the web by layering in your favorite web services and then sharing these remixes with the world. The first thing you'll notice in the Popcorn Maker interface is the video itself. Look at me. Now imagine this video is something you've imported from the web. Videos of the news, your favorite performers, your favorite show, or just your favorite cat. The most important feature of Popcorn Maker is the event editor. By dragging one of these events either onto the video or onto the timeline, you'll create a new event. Here's what an event for a piece of text looks like on the timeline. Imagine we're creating a newscast. Here's a pop-up. Here's an image. Here's a Wikipedia article about Africa. Here's a map of Africa. Get it? The position of the event on the timeline indicates when it will appear in the video area. You can drag these events anywhere on the video, as well as resize them to fit your composition. I want you to try this now. I've put a pause event on the timeline that will stop this tutorial. While it's paused, drag an event onto the timeline, and when you're done, press play to continue.
So we won't do this much longer, but just drag something on, Chad, for a second.
So, yeah, I dragged on a Twitter node, and so I can do a search or username. So let's say Jeff Jarvis. And click away, and there we go. Now we have all of Jeff's tweets in the video, and some things that I can do with this are come down here to the timeline and drag it to make it longer, make it shorter so it's really fast. I can also resize the actually I believe Twitter is kind of stuck in this size, but I can move it around or whatever I want. And that's just Twitter. There are a whole bunch of events like text, pop-up, Google Maps, Twitter, images. You can do a loop or a skip or a pause or even a Wikipedia article. So
I was enthralled with this. That it came from Mozilla, which is Mozilla getting way out of browsers and email and the applications we know. B, when they get to things like the Chromebook, the fact that you can do video editing and those kinds of things just through a browser. I was fascinated. Am I just a video geek? What do you guys think?
Oh, this is awesome.
This is really cool. I want to see a TWiT episode annotated like this.
Yeah. Oh, Chad, you just got more work.
Haha. And so you can do that. You can actually change the source media. So if I wanted to go grab a YouTube video, so let me open up a new tab, go to youtube.com/twit.
Oh, this will be fun.
Yeah, so let's check out how to... I'm going to go to, of course, This Week in Google, and I'll choose the latest episode, Math Wins, and we can grab the URL from the top and then throw it into the source video area, apply it, and now, dun-dun-dun, it will play... Of course, this is probably there we are. The longest possible video that we could have ever given it.
We can annotate all the moments I desperately wish that Leo was in studio.
We just put a picture of Leo. He'll just fly in from time to time.
Totally.
Right. And so there's a little pop-up about breaking news. There's an image that didn't load fast enough, but then some maps and things like that. And then
you can put links in. When we talk about a link, you can put the link in there.
Right. Or like, say we talk about Ting. Let me go to my events. Let's grab, we could grab some text or even a Wikipedia article about Ting. Let's see. It looks like you have to have the article link. It's sort of the Wikipedia syntax.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's pretty. I mean, look, here's a picture of a cat over the Squarespace ad. Pretty amazing. And especially as a video editor myself, I looked for this when I reviewed the first Chromebook, and it's a very powerful tool for taking a video and then annotating on top of it. And then on top of that, once you post this, anyone else can remix the creation.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And it kind of skirts around copyright laws because you're not actually changing the base video. The base video is sort of like a background that's always there, and then you're layering information on top of it. So you're not stealing the content and making it your own video. It's always sort of these separate pieces that you're creating a collage of instead.
Well, unless you take this week's episode and you say Jarvis is boring across it, Denise, where do you think the law goes with this thing?
Yeah, fabulous fair use tool. If you're doing commentary or otherwise adding to the original, I think that there's definitely all kinds of opportunities to use this in a fair use kind of way. There are probably some people who would look at this and say, depending on what use was made, if it wasn't commentary, if it was some kind of more of a derivative work based on the original, that just the fact that they've made that one copy and then layered things over, there would probably be something to talk about under copyright law as to why that might not be okay. I don't know enough technically about how it works to really parse that, but
it really plays with the whole notion of a remix. And you're right, fair comment, that if you make a comment directly on that piece, I mean, it's like being able to scroll over a column you don't agree with in the New York Times. Nonsense.
Right.
What happens to this video once you're done? Can you export it? Does it live on the popcorn? Does it live on the Mozilla site? What happens to it?
So no, you can't ever download the finished product, and that's one of the reasons why I think that this sort of goes around copyright claims, is that you can only watch it when it is streamed through a embedded sort of situation.
Okay.
And so it is my belief that if the original video creator were to take their video off of YouTube, you could no longer play this video because it's pulling it directly.
Just embedding.
Right.
Because you're effectively hot linking everything. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But the Hitler video, the amazing cool Hitler video, right? This could be the tool to make the new captions for the Hitler video.
Right.
Right.
But the other thing is,
but then you couldn't upload it.
But you could screen record it. You could always render this thing through analog means or fake analog means. You could take the output of this and feed it into a compressor and then have a rendered version. That's doable. They just don't make that easy at the moment because they're trying to encourage the hot linking stuff. And the problem is you can make something with this, but then it's as fragile as a web page in that if any of the things you've hot linked go away, you get a sort of empty box there instead. I'm not quite sure. If I link to a search on Twitter for Jeff Jarvis, will I get the current search on Twitter for Jeff Jarvis, or will I get the one that I made at the time, which will have expired by the time you play it next week? So there's some trickiness about attaching to live web assets, but that's it's still a very interesting and powerful tool, and hopefully the answer to that will be better caching and ability to sort of link to things at a particular point in time.
I thought it was amazing, and I was also interested in Mozilla doing this. Why do we think they did this?
Well, they've got a local JS that was designed to let you do dynamic web stuff, and this is an example for that. And they're interested in this because their agenda is keeping the web open and giving you access to it, and so they want to make sure that this stuff isn't locked up in proprietary silos but can be done as part of the web. So doing it in a way that requires you to link everywhere is very much in line with their values.
So, Chad, you do have new work.
Right. And so whenever we mention your Twitter account, I'll have to show the live feed of what you just tweeted.
That sounds like a job in the chat room, actually.
Yeah. And anyone can do this, yeah.
Well, the other thing would be to take the IRC record of the chat room and feed it through this so you get an auto-annotated one, because the chat room is throwing up links and stuff and commentary that we don't always get to. So you could have a little, running, here's some extra stuff that you might want to click on as you watch this. Web6960 just sent us a YouTube to Xbox 360 answer to our question earlier. There we go.
Yes, we were talking earlier about YouTube to smart TVs and to Xbox 360, and that is possible. You have to pair the device. So what we talked about earlier, the AirPlay feature, which is just send to your Google TV, is a one-tap thing, but you can currently pair your Android device with smart TVs and TiVo and Xbox 360. Thank you very, very much, Web6960, for the link.
So I was fascinated by that. I'm going to jump all over the map, and you guys could just, there's no such thing as a host with me here. Jump in with anything. Who put up the link to the Niantic project?
That was actually me.
That was you. I found it fascinating because it's the oh hell, now I can't get it up. Who is it? We'll go up. Can you look at it quickly?
Yeah, I forget where I put that.
It's under Google.
Oh, good. Yes. So this is. It seems like it's a project that Google is keeping semi-secret. It looks like a.
Well, the first outcome of it is that neat things around you app.
Right.
What's it called?
Field Trip. Right.
Field Trip. Thank you. So this is an employee, John Hankey, I guess it is there, right, who wanted to leave and start this company, and he was talked into staying by Larry. And the first thing that came out was Field Trip, and part of his argument was, as I read the story, that he was disturbed that people were just down in their screens, just doing that all the time. So he wanted to have a reason to have them look up, and so Field Trip tells you what's around you and has you look around. What do we think Google's up to in this one?
I think it's part of the information as you move around things. So this is the Eric's trousers discussion of your phone suggesting things as you go past them, and this is an iteration of that. So it's trying to say here's some stuff you might want to look at nearby. Now I turned this on last week, and I was in Las Vegas for a company meeting. And it was going mad, and it was firing off every 8 seconds because there's so many tourist attractions and things around there that I couldn't, I was like, will you stop doing that? Whereas if I try and run it here in suburban San Jose, it goes, oh, well, there's sort of a park over there maybe. So they've still got some stuff to work with about what it triggers for and when, and then, some settings for that. But the idea is nice. The idea of this sort of, there's something serendipitous nearby to you that you might want to look at is interesting, and I think that makes some sense. It reminds me also of Findery, which is Katerina Fake's new thing, which is encouraging people to put interesting markers on the map and explain why they matter. So using the Earth as a means of communication. So as you've got different places on the Earth, there are stories to be told about that. There's history. There's things you can look up there. This is a way of discovering that, but doing it as you walk through the Earth.
I mean, it's got Google Glass written all over it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, every single time I see any of these apps that are just like things around you, it's like, oh, clearly this was built for Google Glass. By the way, things have been quiet on the Glass front recently, but aren't they shipping Glass to the Google I/O attendees? Was it January that they said, Jeff? Do you know?
I was just about to ask you when you're going to get it. Yeah, I think it is January, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that they said early next year. So yeah, I've got my number. It's up. And we just haven't heard a whole lot about it recently. So. Yeah, I mean, whenever I see these, it's like, oh, of course, this is Glass for Glass. Well,
two related stories. There's also a Google Glass competitor coming out. There'll be a few of those. We'll see. Where did that go on the? Leo, how do you do this?
It's not easy, isn't it?
Jesus, it is not. Somewhere in this rundown. There's a story about a competitor for Google Glass.
It's on the very bottom of other.
Musics.
Right. So, yeah, that's tempting, but I'm thinking, but it's not Google. I guess the hardware doesn't matter, right? I mean, it depends on what operating system it uses, and can I use Google Maps in it, and what else? The advantage in that picture, for those of you who are on audio, it's more like a cell phone earpiece with a very, very long microphone that comes out to be a screen. So you don't have to wear it as glasses anymore. You wear it on your ear, which is pretty cool. Very Star Trek, I think. Google Glass is more data. This is more communicator.
This looks like a Bluetooth headset, a really long Bluetooth headset.
With a stick on it, yeah.
With a stick on it, yeah.
Instead of a stick for your mouth, it's a stick for your eye, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the opportunity is like somebody could make glasses that look better than Google's version, but these are not it, in my opinion.
But Google Glass is pretty absurd, too. You got to admit that.
Oh, they do. Yeah, absolutely. But I was just thinking, like, if you could buy a pair that had maybe software that wasn't as good as Google's, but were less conspicuous or look nicer, wouldn't you buy those over the Google version that had the great software? Like, I wonder if vanity is going to be the biggest issue for Glass.
I can't wait for the episode you put your Google glasses on this show.
Oh, me neither. It's going to be fun.
In our world, vanity decrees that you wear them all the time. They'll be beautiful, magnificent.
As long as I can push them up on my head when I don't need them. That's what I always do with my glasses.
So the thing that's striking about these is that it isn't, it's an extra prosthetic, like having an earbud, like having somebody whisper in your ear. But from what I've seen of the Google Glass, it's not, you can just look up and glance it and then look back. But I can see that would be very awkward for other people watching you. But we're going to get used to it. The thing is, the point is less intrusive than doing that, which is what we do at the moment. We're walking around. I was in Vegas. I was in Vegas on election night. So I was walking down the Vegas Strip with this in my hand, reading the election results and trying not to bump into people as I went from one hotel to another. And I realized this was actually quite good because it meant people stopped handing me the little cards for the strippers and things. But it was. I was surprised by how practical it was as a way to sort of do two things at once. So I can sort of see the I was sitting there watching Twitter go by and the NPR election results and all that stuff as I walked over to see Paul Carr's crew, NSFW, who were covering the election in their hotel. So when I got there, I was up to date on what was going on and didn't have to say, what's happened in the meantime, because it was right. It was right about the time when all the results were coming in, and that was interesting in that it was, it's the parallel information thing that we all do, and we're sort of used to doing it with our phones. Being able to do it in a less intrusive way with a little thing in the corner of your eye may be a good thing in the future.
But it's also dangerous too, Kevin, right? That you can still bump into things because your eye is just concentrating on something else.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, and it's there's the same problem as texting while driving. If there's another screen there and it's actually taking a big chunk of your attention, you've got to be careful what you're doing. So there's that you end up, if you get drawn into that, or it's the same thing as, we're doing this show and somebody clicks a link and they'll go off and read it, and then you ask saying, what do you think, Kevin? It's like, oh crap, what am I supposed to think? Because we think we can multitask more than we actually can.
That's true. But there's also the argument, of course, that it's rude to be looking at your phone in a conversation. But the other truth is the conversation you're having on the phone may be better than the one you're having in person. Well, who's to say that being in person is necessarily better, except when the internet goes out and you're not there in the studio at TWiT? How are we doing, Chad?
Doing good. That was a really weird. We had a weird bug where everyone dropped off except for Kevin at the same time. I'm still trying to get Denise back.
That was wacky.
That was really wacky. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Crazy.
Oh, technology.
Well, I'm the closest, yes. I suppose.
Well, Chad, would this be a good time to go off and hear from our next sponsor, American Express?
Yeah, that sounds great. Leo, what do you got for us?
Folks, we interrupt this program for a word from American Express. The American Express company wants to tell you about a service they're offering online. I know we're all anxious to save more. It's one of the things that everybody says, if Americans would just save more money, be good for the economy and good for them. Whether it's saving up for your Ford or a new home or just a rainy day, it's important to save. And you want to get the best return for your money. And that's why I wanted to tell you about the American Express Bank, FSB, member FDIC. They have high-yield savings accounts, a perfect complement for your savings goals. You can find out more online at personalsavings.com/online savings. Now, the key on this is this does not replace your bank. This is just a high-yield savings account you can use in addition to your existing bank with great online features. It is an online bank, so you can link it to your existing bank accounts. You can transfer money easily depending on your needs and keep track of your balance via phone or web 24/7. There are no minimums to set up an account, no fees whatsoever, and they always have great phone support anytime you want to talk to somebody. This is a great complement to your existing financial plans. You can find out more and get the current rate at personalsavings.com/online savings. While you're there, open an account. Remember, no minimums, no fees. Just put a few bucks in just to get it started. You can even set up automatic transactions so that it's withdrawing on a regular basis. That's the way to save. It really is. You don't have to switch banks. Just visit personalsavings.com/online savings. American Express Bank, FSB, member FDIC. And we thank them so much for supporting This Week in Google. We continue now with Jeff, Gina, and the gang. Back to you.
He's so smooth, and that's so hard to do so many of those before he went off on vacation. It was the price he paid, Leo. Thank you. So while we're on this idea of connectivity, there was one other story that fascinated me that's somewhat related in the rundown, that a French cellular company called Sigfox is creating a network just to connect physical things. So bathroom scales and lights and sensors and all that kind of stuff. I found that really interesting because we've talked about that a lot, the Internet of Things, the connected world, the web of things. But it doesn't have to be a 4G network to connect your dishwasher, right? It doesn't have to be that. And so it becomes a special purpose cell network, which I imagine can use excess capacity on lower cost networks, am I right or wrong here, to connect millions of things and what that reveals. What did you guys think of that?
I'm somewhat suspicious. I mean, we've really got a bunch of these. There's Zigbee and a bunch of these other like local area network bits and pieces. And the challenge is always getting enough devices on it. And actually, Wi-Fi is pretty pervasive. That the problem is we end up locking it all up too much. So you end up with the stupid challenge of I have a device, like the Nexus Q is an example. I have a device, I want to get on the Wi-Fi network, but it doesn't have a screen, so I have to whack it over the head with a thing that has a screen so I can type in a password. Whereas if we use Wi-Fi the way we originally designed it, you can find anything nearby and connect to that and assume that that's the right thing to do. So we have a lot of good pervasive wireless stuff going on in the Wi-Fi world, but people are reinventing new things to go on top of it, or trying to find a new way to sell us yet another cellular contract, and that I find a little frustrating. An app I have been using is Open Garden. I don't know if you guys have seen that. This is it creates a distributed network using either Wi-Fi direct or Bluetooth between a set of devices that you have, and if any one of them has connectivity, it shares it with the others. And I was using that. When I said I was walking down the street in Vegas, obviously there isn't Wi-Fi down the street in Vegas, but my phone was connected and the Open Garden thing was connecting between the two. So in that sort of personal area network thing, that works quite well. I haven't had as much success with it on the laptop, but for a bunch of different Android devices, one of which has connectivity, it works pretty well.
Hold on there. Explain that to me. Is it not a hotspot? It's not a Wi-Fi?
It's not it's not a hotspot. It's basically scavenging. So if let me see if I can set this up. I'll probably turn off Wi-Fi on one of them. What it does is you sort of connect your devices together. It's using Bluetooth chipset, but not the Bluetooth protocols, because it doesn't do the annoying pairing bullshit that Bluetooth does. So if let me turn off Wi-Fi on here. This is where I should prep this demo. Okay, so I've turned Wi-Fi off on this one, and I then connect to Open Garden, and I say connect, and I've now got both of them saying connect. The Nexus 7 is not currently connected to the net. The Galaxy Nexus here is, and after a little while it go, oh, we found each other. You're connected, as it should do. Have I got Bluetooth turned on? So there's a little bit of buggering around the first time you use it as they try to find each other, and then once that's done, they stay connected. So I think because I software updated both of these, it may have lost its settings for a bit. But then what happens is, if either of them have connectivity for whatever reason, the other one can pick it up as long as they're close enough. And it's using, as I say, it's using Bluetooth and it's using Wi-Fi direct.
So then what can you do? What's the point?
The point is you've then got connectivity where you didn't have it before. So the Nexus 7,
I see. So you're sharing an internet connection.
Yes. But
okay,
it's not,
gotcha.
It's not as heavyweight as doing the Wi-Fi sharing on the phone, which tends to turn on all the radios on your device and drain the battery really quickly. This is just doing it sort of in the background and scavenging. But also, once they're actually connected, they realize that they're paired and they don't lose it again. And you don't have all the bullshit with Bluetooth where it's like, oh, have I got you? Have I not got you? Right. It actually has worked out quite well at realizing these devices should be part of the same network. And I suspect we're going to see more of this stuff. A lot of these mesh network ideas have been around for quite a while, but they sort of failed on density of devices.
Right.
And as we start having more of these gadgets lying around all over the place, that's going to become less of an issue.
But that's not what this French thing. And the French thing is that you would have a cellular antenna in all these devices, in your scale, in your washing machine, or whatever, right? And rather than going through Wi-Fi, they're saying that whereas a cellular connection consumes 5,000 microwatts, a two-way connection device is 100. So they say they can cover France, an area larger than California, using just 1,000 antennas. So instead of the assumption that we had, which is all these devices are going to go into Wi-Fi and all that, if devices came with very light cellular antennas and could go through a cellular network and had an addressable, had an address, a phone number, basically, right, or anywhere, that seems to be possible. Gina, it seems to me that as a developer, if you really could address 20 things in your home, you could invent all kinds of new things, no?
I'm usually bullish about new kinds of technologies, but it's weird with the Internet of Things. I'm a little bit like, get off my lawn, because I don't think I fully see what you can do. Why would I want my microwave connected to the internet? I guess I see some examples. Turning my lights on before I get home at night, or the heat, turning on the heat or the cooling, that kind of thing. If I had a dog, I've seen really cool projects with little dog doors being programmed or whatever. I backed a project on Kickstarter called Smart Things, which is little sensors for different things in your house. But I know that as a developer, I should just be lit aflame by all the possibility. But this might be because I'm just getting old. I just kind of feel like it would add a layer of complexity for maybe not that much payoff. I mean, Jeff, what is there something that you're dying to do with, an inanimate object in your house that it could do if it were connected?
I think there's a few ways to look at this. One is at the individual level. Yeah, if my oven could download a new program to do the perfect turkey.
Okay.
The guy who cuts my hair, when we were out of power, the guy who cuts my hair was absolutely delighted that he managed to put his turkey in foil and one in the freezer that was going to go bad and do it on the fireplace. So he was really happy. So it's the opposite of the world. But if I could download data into certain appliances, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it that excites me is tons and tons and tons of sensors that know stuff, that share that stuff and that data. And we're seeing all kinds of Kickstarter apps that are doing this with small and very cheap sensors that are now going Wi-Fi, but could also go through other means. That if you had outside in New York sound sensors all over, you would have a sense through data analysis of how much traffic there is. Mm-hmm. You'd have a sense of where something bad happens somewhere in a news idea. If you had sensors all around New Jersey with, you could know which houses had power on, for example. We can have a people's network of that because, believe me, the utilities here have been just awful, especially in Long Island, especially LIPA has just been terrible. And there's data that they don't give to us. We don't know anything. Well, we could suddenly start to get a sensed network of who has power and who doesn't. We could get a sense network of more weather things. I don't know. It just strikes me that there's possibilities for data that we just don't know. And if we could connect all these things via cell, that means they don't have to be near a Wi-Fi. They don't have to have the passwords. They have a way to address.
Right.
Well, for devices that you don't need to update all the time, that you'd like to work a really long time, I could see this being very good for conserving those devices, making sure that they're getting whatever updates they need, a la the Chromebooks that automatically update themselves. We had a washing machine that had a very high-tech LCD display, basically had a computer brain in it. But when that thing failed, because it was not communicating with anything, because it was standalone, the tech who came out to fix it said, well, it'll cost us $600 to go in and monkey around with this thing and see if it can be salvaged. You may as well go out and buy a new washer. So,
that's another idea you mentioned, is that if you had, and this can happen on Wi-Fi too, but if you had smart appliances that don't need to be on all the time, they could go on when the power grid tells them to go on, and you end up with a much smarter grid.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but it still ends up being, are you building a centralized network or a decentralized one? I mean, the thing is, you can do this with Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi was built to do this, and then we imposed all this password bullshit on it. It was born free and is everywhere in chains. Now, what I think could be interesting for this is if we have more open spectrum, like the Wi-Fi bands, like the white spaces stuff we talked about, reusing the old TV bands, you'll be able to do more experimental networks like this without having to buy spectrum licenses. One of the reasons Wi-Fi works so well is it is the same band everywhere in the world, which means you can carry a device around and have it work anywhere. Whereas all the cellular networks, there's variation between countries. One of the big problems they had with the Nexus 4 was that they didn't put an LTE radio in it for the US because that was a different frequency from the ones in Europe and so on. And so you end up having to, in the US particularly, you end up having to build specific models for each specific carrier because they're using both different encodings and different frequencies. Whereas the Wi-Fi stuff, we ended up with a chunk of bandwidth that was the same everywhere, and in a protocol that was agreed that was the same everywhere. And we've broken that. We've through paranoia about people using your network and things like that, we've imposed passwords and bullshit man in the middle things that make you type stuff into the web first.
Don't get them with a red mark. BS. Bad words on YouTube.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, we have all that BS on top of Wi-Fi now, and it's broken. That's why I just wonder whether a cell network, because it has a different structure that has a number. But yeah, okay, I get it. It's new technology. I want it. That's all.
Well, there's there's the campaign to reopen Wi-Fi. I don't know if you guys covered that. It was like
no, unless you did last week, Gina.
Well, I'm sorry.
Did you cover the campaign to reopen Wi-Fi last week?
No, I don't think we did.
Let me see if I can find the name of it.
You now have someone buzzing Kevin from the sky, Bob.
Yeah, there is a plane going over. Sorry about that. I've also got a poodle who seems to come out of the house. So the Open Wireless movement, openwireless.org, is a campaign by the EFF, the Internet Archive, and lots of other nice people to say, why don't you open your Wi-Fi networks? Things aren't so bad, and find ways of doing this that aren't as awkward as giving everyone access to everything. And then it comes down to, we've been scared because, people can get onto your network. But this is actually a flawed worldview of wireless security. This is the failed firewall model, where you assume that inside the network, everything is lovely, and outside the network, there are enemies, and therefore the boundary of the network is the thing you need to worry about. And actually, this isn't true. Each of the devices are connected to everything else, and you need to actually have security on each device and use secure connections when you need to. Then it doesn't matter what the network looks like. So the point of this is to encourage you to set up an open Wi-Fi network whose name is openwireless.org without a password. And many of the routers that you buy, including all the Apple ones, will let you set up more than one wireless network, a passwordy one and an open one, and balance traffic between them. And so they're encouraging you to do this so that you can people can roam onto Wi-Fi in different places. I think this is a really good idea. I think it's it would be it's something when parts of New York had connectivity, some didn't. There was still the problem that you could walk around town and see Wi-Fi networks and not be able to connect to them because everyone's locked them all down now. And having that kind of availability of this as a public resource, I think, is extremely valuable.
Gina, do you think there's any hope that anybody's going to do that, or is it another one of those goody two-shoes things that ought to happen and nobody's going to listen?
I mean, I hope so. It's funny. We write on Lifehacker a lot about how to secure your stuff because you hear these cases about people park outside your house and use your wireless network to do illegal thing, download music or to copyrighted music or to download porn or whatever, and that you would take the hit for that because it was your connection. I mean, I like the idea that this is an organized movement and that there's a standard network name, which is pretty cool. And I like that they're encouraging you to use the guest network functionality of your router, which I've actually never used. I'll do this, but yes, I do think this is the type of thing that geeks will take. Excuse me, we'll take and run with, and maybe not normal people, but then again, given what just happened in New York,
amen.
This is all the more reason for people to share resources, and this is one way to do it.
And it wasn't just electricity, which was vital, but also trying to get a MiFi. We were lucky to get a hotel, but the hotel had no internet, and so there were MiFi scattered all around, but they weren't working that well. And that was an issue. So we have Denise here. Answer me a question, counselor. When I go to Starbucks again and again and again and again, and I have to constantly sign on and agree to the checkbox for signing on to the, God bless it, that's very nice of them to give me a free network, but it's the pain, and my devices can't do it, and I want to get my email, and it tries to hook into the Wi-Fi, and it stops me from checking my email until I go off and do that or turn off the Wi-Fi. What are they afraid of? Why are they having me check off that I've agreed not to do whatever I've agreed not to do?
Oh, gosh. I can think of lots of reasons why they're...
Oh, no, I was afraid.
They don't want you being able to come after them for some sort of shortcoming of the Wi-Fi service they're providing. They don't want to be held responsible for anything you may do while using their network. Those are two biggies.
Okay. That's it all. With all respect, that's kind of the legalese of, oh my God, things could happen. What could really happen? Can we imagine a doomsday scenario for the Starbucks network?
Well, what was the thing with the sheep?
Fire sheep?
Fire sheep.
Yes, fire sheep.
But would that be Starbucks' fault?
That was real.
Well, Let me talk about Firesheep. The point about Firesheep was saying if you're not using secure HTTP, anyone can snoop on what's going over the network, and that was true, and it's still true, and it wasn't anything to do with Wi-Fi particularly. It's just it's easier with Wi-Fi because you're all in the same room with radios. The same if you're using HTTP without HTTPS, then anyone who's in between you can eavesdrop on the packets, and that can be done in many different ways. It can be done by being part of the ISP. It can be done by putting fake routes in and tapping that way. It can be done by being, the FBI's box at the ISP, and people can tap into things like that, or it can just be the thing in the coffee shop sniffing every packet as it goes by. So the point of Firesheep was to point this out to people and say, encourage companies to turn on HTTPS by default, and it has been largely successful in that. If you look at Twitter and Facebook and Google and all the sites that Firesheep targeted, they now do default to HTTPS, which means that you've got an encrypted connection between you and their server, and you have some sense that it isn't you aren't being man in the middle. It's not completely safe against that because of some subtleties about how certificates work, but broadly you're safe against somebody intercepting you because your device will tell you that isn't who you think it is when it's HTTPS.
Right. And back to your question, Jeff, could a provider be held responsible? I think they could. It would be something that people would fight about in court, but the standards for what sort of Wi-Fi is required to be provided under the law are a work in progress for sure.
And there's the problem is that it's broken, right? I can't just wander in through a Wi-Fi zone at the Starbucks and say, thank you, Starbucks, thank you, AT&T, and use it. I have to stop and I have to go through Mozilla. There's no mechanism for me to sign up once and for all and say, hello, okay, I take responsibility, all right.
Yeah.
If I sign on your network, let me in, and it's my fault.
Well, that should be something they should be able to fix if they can identify you or your device.
Right, but the problem is doing that between different Starbucks
yes.
So what they're trying to do with the openwireless.org is instead of having one of these click-through contracts of adhesion that you have to go through every time, they are saying, well, by calling the Wi-Fi network openwireless.org and putting up a sticker on the wall or a poster, you are saying the terms of use for this are this. And that's just as good a contract of adhesion as getting somebody to click something. It's just as likely to stand up in court, and obviously you can do IP banning or something if you find people abusing it. So what they're trying to do is as a sort of Creative Commons-like thing of defining a standardized license that openwireless.org defines that you can just then refer to, and they're saying they hope to. They're not saying they will defend you in court, but they said they have in the past defended open wireless networks in court and have some case law, and they're going to keep trying to do that. So there's a long sort of here's what we're trying to do disclaimer on the openwireless.org side, but they're basically trying to change the norm such that people say, well, you have to secure your network and push back against that a bit. And I think that's a very encouraging thing.
Would be a great thing. All right, so we're going to lose Denise in a few minutes. So there's one other story that you put up in the rundown, Denise, about California workplace laws and privacy and social stuff. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the Petraeus story we were talking about earlier. We've got kind of a sort of a perfect storm of things happening here. People definitely are concerned about these privacy issues, and at least 3 states now, it's California, Illinois, and Maryland, have addressed the problem of employers asking people for their social networking passwords. And, there were a lot of stories cropping up about that, and those 3 states have said, no, that can't be a condition of employment or anything. You just can't do it. Employers, don't ask your employees for that. You can't snoop on them that way. So, we see some movement there responding to people's concerns. But then on the flip side, recently we had a court it was the Supreme Court of South Carolina, interpreting the Stored Communications Act in such a way that, again, it was getting into someone's email account. This time it wasn't the government. It was just as bad as the government, right? The disgruntled ex who wants to dig up dirt on you. They, either guessed or socially engineered someone's password and got into their account. The person sued under the Stored Communications Act, saying, hey, they have had unauthorized access to my storage device. And the court found, no, this isn't something that the Stored Communications Act actually will prevent. And there was a big debate about what constitutes storage and whether email is storage in today's day and age. And of course, you were talking about cleaning out your inbox. We all use it that way. So it's just kind of a big mess, and I'm not quite sure how it will all resolve itself from the litigation or legislation standpoint, but people sure aren't happy with the way that their privacy is exposed in today's day and age.
I think it makes perfect sense. In Finland, employers are not even allowed to Google employees to find out about them, which I think is wrong. I think that at some point you have bad employees and you have the ability to find out about them. The idea of the reference is dead because everyone's afraid of liability of saying anything bad about anyone. But that's all a different world than actually demanding that. It's like asking you to hand over the keys to your house so I can go snoop on you. Right. That's ridiculous.
Indeed. So, I think it's just a thing that's going to continue to unfold, and we're going to see lawmakers and courts continue to struggle with it. But at this Petraeus thing is just another way of getting the issue in front of people, and the more that happens, the more we might see some change that makes sense.
Well, we're about to lose Denise, so I want to say thank you very much, Denise, for adding in here to our Leoless week. We will continue on after that. You want to plug This Week in Law?
This Week in Law is Friday at 11 Pacific, 1800 UTC. So definitely tune in. We'll probably talk about the Petraeus case again, and we've got Larry Downs and Jillian York from EFF joining us, so that should be a really fun show. And also, I have a TWiT Live special up on the TWiT network that people should check out if you're interested in seeing what happened at On Hollywood, which is a conference where Hollywood folks and technologists come together to hopefully not kill one another, but figure out how they can work together. We covered that on the TWiT network, and I think it just went up, so check that out.
Thank you very much. And Chad, why don't we hit the next commercial for our friends at Ford, and then we'll come back and we'll do kind of a lightning round of some stories that each of us wants to hit, and then depart with our tools and tips and such. So over to you, Chad, and over to you, Leo.
I'm driving in my car. Hey, guys, let me just briefly mention one of our sponsors, if you don't mind, and we can get back to This Week in Google, and that's Ford Motor Company. I love you saying that. Oh, yes, our sponsor, Ford Motor Company, one of the great American companies. And I've been watching. Have you seen the TV ads lately where they say the Ford Focus, it's like a computer in a car? What do they say? Like driving a computer? It's very interesting. I think Ford really realized that consumer electronics and automotive technology belong together. The problem is, until Ford came along with Ford Sync, you really weren't connected to the outside world. You were in your car, and that was it. The issue was, how do we connect you with the outside world without being distracting, right? And what Ford did, and they did a lot of testing, I know this because I've talked to them about this, is they did a lot of research, and they found that you have plenty of cognitive ability to drive and do something else. The issue is taking your eyes off the road or your hands off the wheel. That's what's really dangerous. So they created Ford Sync. Basically, everything is voice controlled. So your hands are on the wheel, your eyes are on the road, you don't have to look at anything. It reads you back any input you need, and you talk to the car. And I just think it's brilliant. And it means you can do so many cool things in a Ford. Best of all, Ford is now offering Sync on every 2012, 2013 Ford vehicle in the U.S., including that beautiful 2012 Ford Focus. Shannon just bought one of those. Shannon Moore, she loves it. Go to Ford.com/technology. You can find out more about what Sync can do. It lets you control your music player completely via voice. Browse your music collection via genre, album, artist, playlist, or song title, all with voice commands. In fact, go to the webpage and read the commands. It's kind of amazing all the things you can do with Sync. Basically, their goal was to make make it possible for you to control everything in your car with your voice without looking away from the road, without taking your hands off the wheel. Voice-activated control of your media player to even play a list of music you're in the mood for, or you can say, play similar music with a voice command, and it will do that. Almost any device, too. Voice control music, whether it's on your smartphone via Bluetooth streaming, on a USB drive, on an MP3 player. Ford.com/technology. It's just amazing. And then there's some really safety stuff, too. Find a police station, find a hospital, call roadside assistance, call 911, nearest veterinarian. Ozzy just barked. Did you hear that? Nearest pet hotel. I just love it. I want you to visit Ford.com/technology right now. Learn more about what Sync can do, and then go to your Ford dealer and test drive Ford Sync. Go further in a Ford. Ford.com/technology. We thank them for their support of This Week in Google, and we return you now to Twig. Thanks, guys.
Back. We're heading toward the home run here. No, not the home run. I'm just such a non-man. What do you call it? You're heading toward the home plate here. Home plate. Jesus, I'm just pathetic. Anyway, we're heading slowly there around, what is it, 4 or 5 bases you got? I don't know. I wanted to mention a few government stories that we have here. Last week, I was supposed to be out of the country in Baku and then Istanbul, but Sandy kept me here. Nonetheless, I got up at 2 in the morning in the hotel to do a video conference with the Internet Governance Forum in Baku. And here's the wonderful, obvious irony of it. The Internet there sucked, and it cut off the entire presentation halfway through. This is what's going to happen if governments run our internet, people. It's going to be a real problem. And we see in the stories this week a couple things about government involvement. One is that China, going into its party Congress, blocked Google entirely and then returned them there. Blocked Google.com, Gmail, Google+, Maps, Docs, Analytics, and more. Just was able to take that away and put it back, and what they give if they take it away. And then we also have Google releasing its transparency report, which shows nothing but a huge increase, some of it attributable to Turkey now being on YouTube, but a huge increase in government censorship requests to Google. And that's just what Google tells us. We don't know what happens on some other services. So just wanted to, have my usual sermonette here of just saying that I fear what's happening with government control of the net. Meanwhile, we also have France and Germany and Brazil publishers working with government, all trying to cut off Google News and not allow. Pardon me. There it goes. It's dark and I'm pink again. I'm back. Not allowing them to do snippets because they want basically to have a piece of Google's taxes. And one last piece. I watched an appalling, I thought, hearing this week in the UK with Google, Amazon, and Starbucks about what's so-called tax avoidance. And it's quite irksome that companies like these operate in the UK and in countries around the world and pay little taxes because of accounting things. But it's tax minimization. What no one gets is that it's Google saying in the end of the day that they have a fiduciary responsibility to minimize taxes, maximize profits, maximize value for their shareholders. If you don't like the law, change the law. And you have a lot of countries now that are trying to look at Google and say, we want a piece of your pie or else we're going to cause you big trouble. So a little around the world, government and the internet still aren't getting along. Any reaction to that rant, or we can move on to the next story?
Ongoing challenge. I mean, the IGC thing was interesting to see some of the stuff going on there because that was originally an attempt by the ITU to wrest back control of the internet, and it was good to see that a lot of the government types who were there were actually pushing back against that and fighting for the internet to stay open again. That piece was good. The taxation and financial stuff is always going to be tricky, and some of the things that the companies do seem a bit fishy. But you can see why they do them. They end up saying, oh, but the things that Google does to make sure it doesn't pay tax in lots of the world by moving money between Ireland and Holland and the Dutch Antilles and whatever else it is. They do this like elaborate selling mythical services to subsidiaries, so they don't end up paying corporation tax anywhere. And then they sit there with all this money overseas they can't bring back to the US, because if they do, they'll have to pay tax on it. So there's a lot of weirdness going on in that field. And I'm not sure what the answer is to solve that. I mean, the US solved it for individuals by saying, well, we'll tax you wherever you are in the world, so screw you if you're American. If you go to France, we'll tax you twice. But they haven't done that with corporations yet. And if they did, that might make it a lot trickier for them.
Well, but the problem is that the issue there is not with Google, with a corporation. The issue there is government to government. And they all want their slice of the pie, and they all don't want to give up their incentives to have companies do business there instead of somewhere else. And so you see Google, called on the carpet. I don't like defending Google all the time. I'd rather criticize Google. It gives me more credibility. But it was a rather ridiculous display, I thought, of trying to make Google into an enemy and just say that this is immoral when they're following the law that the MPs who criticized them wrote.
Yeah, this is the Dutch sandwich and the double Irish that we're talking about. I mean, this is bigger than Google, right? This isn't, lots of companies do this, right? I mean, this is an issue. The taxation issue happens to lots of companies, right? This isn't Google specific.
But they go after Google because Google is such an easy target, right? That's the thing that gets my dander up.
Right.
That, Google's the big, bad American company. And one of the things that the head of his name is Britton, ironically, I think, of operations in Northern Europe, as he called it, the wet countries, said in the end, I wish that Google, he was British, he said, I wish Google were a British company. I wish Larry went to Cambridge, but it isn't, and he didn't, and it's an American company, and the real value of Google is in America.
Right. Do you feel like Google what are the things that Google can do something about? So that's a government-to-government issue. Do you think that Google issuing their transparency reports about government requests, that I think, again, not to pat Google on the back, but that's a good thing, right? What else can they do to deal with these kind of issues? Yeah.
That's good. I think that more transparency about what it is. Google has knowledge around the earth, and really, it's probably not Google's job. It's a journalist's job to explain sanely the tax structure that goes on around the world that does, in fact, have Google pay very low taxes in the UK. And I understand why people emotionally are upset about that. But what they don't understand is Google's fiduciary responsibility to its shareholders. That's the way we're set up. It's the structure. And what do you expect them to do? To voluntarily pay more taxes? Then their shareholders would sue them. So it's really kind of a journalistic story, I think. But I like that idea, Gina, in that Google stands in a position to compare things around the world. They could probably compare, what companies pay and taxes and things like that around the world. It'd be rather uncomfortable for them, but transparency.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, even I don't expect them to voluntarily pay more taxes. That seems crazy. I mean, I'm generally pretty nice and think that Google should go out of its way to do the right thing. But voluntarily paying more taxes seems an insane thing to expect from a company that, like you said, has a responsibility to maximize profits. And this is all legal, what they're doing.
Right. The same with Mitt Romney.
It's the Romney thing again, yeah. Yes, he was only paying 13% tax or whatever it was. And then the argument becomes, well, okay, that was legal, but was it nice? And that's what's happened in the UK, I think. They've actually looked at how much tax big companies are paying. Starbucks, I think, was the one that they made the most case for, because they're actually got a lot of employees in the country. It's not like it's a virtual company that could be anywhere. They're actually selling coffee, but they were still doing some kind of shenanigans to make sure they didn't end up paying any tax.
We're paying 20% cost for brand and other services to a subsidiary, I think, in Netherlands or somewhere like that. But even so, part of the argument that was made by a defender of Starbucks, and I don't know the Starbucks and Amazon stories well enough, but Starbucks is investing in more and more and more stores in the UK, employing more and more people, paying payroll taxes for them, and the argument there is the net is good for them. We should have This Week in Taxes, which would be a very boring show, even worse than having. But it does end up with the demonization constantly of the big technology company now, and there's ancillary danger in that, I think. So,
well, part of this is the tension between the net's inherent global nature and local laws, and that's playing out in lots of different respects. So the ITU transfer fees that were negotiated for phone companies that help subsidize state telcos was part of the rant of the IGF thing. And there are the similar things with territoriality in rights distributions and things like that. The discussion that Dr. O has been promoting about the problems of selling ebooks, because the history was, if you don't have rights in that territory, anyone can sell on it, and ebooks has reversed that. So therefore, suddenly you can't buy English language books in non-English speaking countries when they're ebooks. So there's a whole bunch of this stuff that is, we're trying to go from stuff that is inherently territorially focused and naturally bounded by geography to stuff that is not, that is naturally connected to the entire world, because that's how the internet was designed. And the sort of boundaries between the two are very, very messy and are being sorted out at the moment. And this is going to go on for a while, and it's back and forth between the two of them as to which is valuable. But obviously, my bias is towards the global nature of the net and finding new ways of dealing with it. Yes. But I can see the opposite perspective from the countries going, wait a minute, why have these companies suddenly become immune to being taxed?
Right, but I think what it does is it shows how the net challenges the very essence and existence of governments. Yes. And that is highly disruptive, and governments are going to fight that. And it goes back to, I think we have to constantly defend technology against its demonization by people who are threatened by it, who are disrupted by it. All right, so we've got about 10 minutes left. Why don't we do a round robin? And Leo started this before, and I thought it was fun, of just doing the stories that we want to do on the rundown, anywhere, any what. Why don't you start, Gina?
Yeah, sure. I didn't include this in the changelog because it was kind of developer heavy, but I wanted to mention it. Google introduces a 6-month trial for Cloud SQL, which is their Google App Engine database section. They're upping the storage to 100 gigabytes. So you get a free 6-month trial, 100 gigabytes of storage in a MySQL database. This sounds really developer heavy, but I've got kind of my tongue hanging out here because I feel like Google App Engine is an opportunity for Google to let users, or I mean, right now it's for developers, a service for developers, but I would love to see it to be a consumer product where people can deploy their own web apps, their own server-side web apps into their kind of personal cloud, right? And that's kind of what we do with ThinkUp. ThinkUp is a web app I build. It's PHP MySQL, unfortunately, so you can't actually deploy it on Google App Engine because Google App Engine only supports Python and Java at the moment, and there's some crazy hacky way to get PHP to work with Java, but I haven't actually done that yet. But this is 100 gigabytes of MySQL storage, which is pretty amazing. Super fast reads and writes. And I don't know, Kevin, have you played around with? Have you done much with Google App Engine? I think the last bit of dev work I did with App Engine was a Google Wave bot back in the day. Deployed it on App Engine and haven't done anything since.
I have done stuff with it in the past. Haven't done much stuff recently. And obviously, I should say I have an interest here. I work for Salesforce that owns Heroku, and so we have our own cloud hosting stuff that is more generous about what it lets you host. Let's put it that way. I think this is always interesting. I think I agree with you. We had a conversation about this when we were driving up to Twig about the difficulty of being able to deploy something into somebody else's cloud, and why that's still fairly painful. There are still there are sort of closed business solutions with Force.com. You can where you can say, okay, I want to deploy this app in my domain, but it's quite hard to do it as a consumer to say, I would like to deploy this thing somewhere. And what's happened is the hosting companies have, as you say, standardized on PHP and MySQL, but that doesn't, that those aren't necessarily the most secure things to deploy in the world. I think Matt Biddle said this week, says that the price of a self-hosted WordPress install is eternal vigilance. You're always sitting there trying to find out where the leaks are and what's gone wrong this week. So the challenge is to come up with a way of saying, yes, I'd like to deploy this thing, and have your own instance of it running in the cloud somewhere. So that's something that all of us who are doing this cloud services would like to do, but it's still not straightforward.
Isn't Android a model for that? I mean, Gina, my dream is that is that Amazon, Google, wherever, I can put up a module and say, yes, give me my own cloud-based instance of ThinkUp. And when you need to put out an update for a security update, just like an Android app, it just pushes out. And I can keep using it happily and paying you or whatever. I don't understand why that's been so difficult and why it doesn't exist. Kevin was confused, but I would think it'd be doable.
It's kind of doable, right? I mean, it's sort of doable. Like if you maintain a WordPress installation, right? Every once in a while you have to hit update. I mean, the goal is that you be able to deploy, not only deploy, but seamlessly roll out updates and have those updates kind of happen in your cloud automatically without you having to think about it. And that's a little harder to do. And we've been working on that with ThinkUp and with various cloud providers. But yeah, we need to get there, right? But when you don't own the whole stack, right, it gets harder to do updates and easy deploys because every environment has kind of just different variables.
Well, Kevin, why isn't there a retail version of Salesforce? Pardon me, lights again. It's Halloween. Where, even if I don't use Salesforce because I don't, do the things Salesforce does, I know Mark Benioff would say we all do things Salesforce does, but let's just get past that. Where you do have an environment where you couldn't you do this?
Is this me going down or is this you going down?
Uh-oh. We've lost Kevin. Okay. Well, I was going to for his story next, but he seemed to be losing his bandwidth as we went. So I want to mention two quick things real fast. One is, maybe it's one, actually.
Sorry, I'm back, so I can try and respond to that.
Go ahead.
Well, in a sense, we have that for Salesforce. You can deploy apps into our cloud that then go out to users. We've got a marketplace for that, but as you say, it's not a consumer. You have to sign up for a Salesforce account to get access to that. And similarly, Google has that for their. If you do apps for your domain and set stuff up there, they've got a store there that will let you install stuff in the cloud. And you're right. The challenge is making this something that makes more sense on a consumer basis because we've managed to do it to install to local devices, which in some ways is harder. So it will be good to be able to do that. So yeah, I agree. It's something we should work on. There's one thing. Well, we're being extremely geeky. The one thing we did release or is being built is Heroku Pipeline, which is designed to make it easier to do this kind of stage deployment between different devices. Different instances. So you can just say, okay, deploy this, and then upgrade that one, and upgrade that one, upgrade that one. But it's still command line based. It isn't fully automatic yet. So there's still work to be done here. The challenge with this is it's all configuration management stuff and making sure that you can have different configurations running in different places, and then keeping track of all those configurations and what they're doing. So it's not the world's hardest problem. It's more of it's not. But it's more a database administration problem and an authorization problem. I think this is going to.
If Gina's told how to write an app in a way that you or Google Apps will allow it to happen and allow her to update it regularly, then it becomes a lot easier at a retail level for dummies like me to get it, which would be good. All right, Kevin, we're running toward, what is it called, home base again? You have a story you want to hit?
I wanted to mention the Mark Cuban ranting at Facebook story.
Explain it.
I think that's interesting. So this is what's happened is people are seeing Facebook as bait and switch. So when Facebook was encouraging companies to create brand pages on Facebook, they said, well, if anyone likes you on Facebook, that you get the right to then send emails and status updates to them, and they'll see them in their timeline. And that's how it will work. So you should encourage people to like you on Facebook because that will give you access to them. So they were trying to create a sort of knowledge network within Facebook of that. Then as they improved their I think they call it EdgeRank algorithm that decides which stories they show in your feed, because if they try to show you all the stories that were potentially in your feed, it would scroll fast and you could read it. They found that a lot of these corporate messages and a lot of these other things were not things people were interacting with, and so they were getting de-emphasized in their feed. So now Facebook is selling promoted stories to you to say, well, if you want people to actually see these things you're posting, you should pay us money, and then they'll show up as promoted things, in the same way that Twitter does promoted tweets. And there's been a huge backlash from the brand people who feel betrayed by Facebook for this, saying, wait a minute, but you told us we could talk to people, and now you're saying we have to pay you to talk to people, and this is nasty, and Cuban has posted a big rant about this, and said, I'm going to take all my NBA teams and my personal HD networks and blah, 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 and whatever else he does, off Facebook and put them on MySpace, which is interesting threat. But the point is, it is this tension between what is it that I've chosen to see, and what is the algorithm trying to see me? The sort of the
which is true of Twitter, which is true of Twitter, especially of Facebook, and also of Google Plus.
It's less true of Twitter because Twitter doesn't, shows you everyone you subscribe to by default.
Well, but it acknowledges that you don't see everything, so it tries to sell you.
But it will also send you other random things now and then.
Yeah.
Right? So for Twitter, the promoted tweets come to you even though you don't subscribe to them. Whereas for Facebook, they're saying you're already subscribed to Mark Cuban business, whatever it is, but you likely won't see it. But if he pays us $3,000, then that many people will get to see it. It'll show up in their stream at some point. So there is a tension here between who gets to see what. This is also potentially both Facebook and Twitter's way of getting around the we can't sell ads on mobile problem by selling ads that are actually part of the stream. So there is that tension between the two there, which is how much of your stream would you like to be taken over with that? So they do need to charge enough for that that people don't give up reading Facebook or Twitter entirely because their stream gets completely flooded with it. So it's a messy dynamic. It's going to be interesting to watch it play out. But it's interesting to see that there is such a strong revolt against it from some of the content providers who suddenly feel they've been held hostage.
Thank you. I didn't understand that. Gina, you have any reaction to Cuban's rant?
I thought it was funny. That was about it.
I want to mention one story, and then we'll get to our tools and tips and stuff. And it's not exactly a light topic, it's not at all, but it was fascinating that the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, announced a military assault on Hamas in Gaza today, not in a press conference, not in a press release, but on Twitter. And what is also fascinating is that Hamas came back and then attacked the IDF on Twitter. So IDF said, we recommend that no Hamas operatives, whether low-level or senior leaders, show their faces above ground in the days ahead. And the Al-Qassam brigades came back and said, our blessed hands will reach your leaders and soldiers wherever they are. You opened hell gates on yourselves. Well, I guess my only reaction to this is I wish that Twitter were the only place they were fighting. But I find it fascinating that even a global war starts to be played out in our little world. So that was all I had to say about that.
Yeah, that's
Any
interesting.
reaction to that? Yeah.
It's pretty
really
incredible. We go from Justin Bieber and like UFC fighters calling out fights and the president basically accepting his re-election, right, to that. I mean, it's incredible really what goes on at Twitter now.
It's basically an acknowledgement of the power of Twitter for good or bad or whatever you think of it. It's the way to go directly to people and directly to media as well. So, all right.
Yep.
So, I hope we survived pretty much without a few technical glitches. We'll do tools, tips, and whatever we call them. Kevin, do you have any contribution in that end, or you don't have to?
Well, mine was Open Garden. That was my tool of the week. Which is the sort of personal area networking, and this is a certain amount of like ridiculous luxury here, which is if you have two Android devices and one of them has connectivity, the other one can get connectivity too, which is like. But as I do, I found it really useful. That was something that was actually very practical for me this week. So I'm recommending that if you have, particularly if you have a Nexus 7 that's Wi-Fi only. But has Bluetooth, and you have a phone that has other connectivity, you suddenly find you can use them both as you're wandering around, which is nice.
Beautiful. Gina?
Yeah, that is nice. Cool new Chrome experiment really quickly called 100,000 stars. The short URL is g.co/100,000 stars. Visualizes 100,000 stars closest to the sun using data from an array of sources, including NASA and the European Space Agency. And you kind of zoom around and click around to sort of explore the galaxy and look at different star names. It's a really, really neat Chrome experiment. I think it runs only in Chrome. I think that's it uses the experiment makes use of Google Chrome support for WebGL, CSS3D, and web audio. So really cool. G.co/100,000 stars if you got a moment and you want to take a look at the sky. And it kind of walks you through a little narrative at first, which Chad is showing us here.
Cool.
Really cool.
Yeah, but it's cool. It moves.
It moves. There's music.
Folks on audio, what you see is a whole bunch of stars. You look up at the sky, it'll work too. But it's really very neat. Oh, music. Oh, wow. Google is fascinated with outer space, aren't they?
Yeah.
They love stars and all this stuff. They go nuts for it.
Yeah, this is fantastic for kids, especially. Well, kids and adults.
We're all. All right, so number of the week. Very quickly, Google's worldwide ad revenue reached $10.9 billion in the first half, and somebody came in and noticed that was more than all of the U.S. print ad revenue. So it's a big apples and oranges, apples and kumquats. It's Google worldwide versus U.S. only print. Nonetheless, it's why everybody is so jealous of Google and going after their butt, because Google is making more in ad revenue than all print media now make in the United States. And that is a pretty astonishing stat in and of itself. So I think that we made it. Chad, thank you very, very much. The indubitable, amazing Chad has brought us home here. Kevin, we want to thank you for joining us in our Leoless week. You want to plug tumblevision.tv, correct, right?
Well, we're still on hiatus, but yes, there's 100 shows in the archive there if you want to go back and look at them.
A move to do a Kickstarter to pay for the production assistance that Kevin needs to bring back to Tumblevision. Would that be accurate?
That could be something that could be done. Yeah, the challenge is we lost our producer, and between the three of us, we're not organized enough to produce it ourselves. So we need to get someone else to help us out with that.
Maybe we can use popcorn. Gina, you want to plug Etta?
My daughter Etta is doing great. I issued a new release of my Android app this week. It's got a few new translations: Czech, Russian, Italian, German, and you can find it in the Google Play Store. And it's also out for iOS. It's todotext.com. It's a text-based task manager, and that's all I got. Thank you so much, Jeff. You did great. You did great this week. I mean, obviously we all really missed Leo, but it was a really fun show. It was a great panel. Thanks for taking the reins.
Time in is it Australia, Chad, where he is?
Yeah, he's in Australia. He's on a boat right now. They watched the eclipse the other day, the solar eclipse.
Really neat.
That was yesterday. Yeah, I was seeing photos of it.
Right.
I think it fall into the show, darn it, but that's another matter. So I want to thank you all out there for suffering along with our Leo this week. He'll be back in 2 weeks, in mere 2 weeks. Next week, we do the show again right before Thanksgiving. And then the week after that, we'll be thankful that Leo returns. So that's it. That's This Week in Google. We'll see you next week.